not about politics. It's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. We're just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
I just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to It's Just Football here in Mobile, Alabama for the 2023 Senior Bowl. It is post-day 3 of practices, which means we are here to recap what was Senior Bowl practice week. Trevor Sikkema, Mike Renner here with you guys. Mike, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling a little cold. We went from getting sunburned on Tuesday to now freezing our nips off here on Thursday.
Speak for your own nips, by the way, but full cycle here of weather, which is it's what these NFL coaches want to see from these players, right? How it's like in the beating sun, and then you got the raining cold conditions, and so it felt like we just got the full Mobile experience.
I was gonna say it felt like we lived through a whole NFL season right here. It was warm to start, and now it's turned into basically playoff time.
True. So now there's no excuse. NFL teams know exactly what they're going to get from these players from all 3 days that we saw of practice. So we're obviously going to recap kind of what we saw here on day 3, but this show is going to be more of a total Senior Bowl recap with all 3 practices in the books. We're going to give you all types of superlatives. We're going to give you our favorite quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, plus we're going to get to some favorite surprises, best moment. We're going to talk about best team fits for different players, all sorts of stuff. But you want to start with, where do we want to start? Which position do you want to start with here as we get into the superlatives?
Ooh. Can we start with – let's start with O-line.
Okay.
Trenches.
Starting with trenches.
Start with the trenches.
Trying to get on the big boys' good side here, starting with the trenches. We'll go O-line, and then we'll flip it over to D-line. So, offensive line. We'll each bring a different guy to the table from what we thought about here. Who do you think won the week from the offensive line?
Well, I just want to say, I want to start with O-line, D-line, wide receiver, CB, because those are the positions that matter the most. Those are the positions where you're really getting good additional info from an evaluation perspective.
Yep.
Running back, safety, linebacker, you can't tell as much, I'll just say. But offensive line, the guy I thought really stood out and really kind of solidified himself as maybe a top 50 pick in this draft is TCU's Steve Avila.
Top 50, let's go, Mike.
I mean, he is built like a guard. Standing next to him, he filled up his helmet. I mean, he's got just a guy who is just built to be 330-plus pounds. Mm-hmm. He is a wide-built dude. That is how you want your guards to look. You want your guards to not be those guys that lose 100 pounds after retirement and are, looking like Jeff Saturday does right now. You want them to be
Hold on. Whoa. Interim head coach Jeff Saturday.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I can't disrespect that.
You want them to be thick boys, and that is Steve Avila, and thick and nimble, though. Steve Avila in the pass pro one-on-ones, as soon as he got his hands on guys, dropped anchor, and he just did not move back into the pocket. So, to me, he was the most impressive for all the guys who had their full week of practice.
And a day 3 shout-out to him as well. I was watching him in the pass protection drill specifically. He was going up against Zach Pickens for South Carolina, who is a big boy. This is the 2 of the bigger guys going up against each other. And there was one specific rep where Avila got low. He got his hands exactly where he needed to, and he stonewalled Pickens, so much so that he controlled him all the way to just driving him outside of the pocket and then even throwing him outside of the pocket. It was one of the best interior pass protection reps I think I saw all week. Feels like one of the most dominant ones, so I love the shout out there. I'm going to go back to a guy who I had as a dog of the day at one point here during these shows. It's Minnesota's John Michael Schmitz. I have to pick him because he just feels like a player. We talked about him yesterday. Center 1 in this draft class, so at least we believe he's going to get drafted as center 1 in this draft class. And I felt like, to your point, guys that showed up all 3 days, he was consistently one of the better players. Not to say he was perfect, not to say he didn't lose a couple of reps here and there, but a lot of the biggest plays that we saw during the scrimmage portion, he was a big part of. He was the one who was able to seal blocks and get those running backs in big open spaces. We saw him in the pass protection drills, in the run blocking drills as well, and it just felt like his mentality, his strength, the acumen that he had for the position. It feels like he just understands how to play center so well, and that showed up so many times this week. I feel like he solidified that status as the top center. If you need a center, a pure center in this draft class, this is the guy that you go with.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say he's definitely going to be an elite center, but I think he's one of the higher floor players in this draft class.
I would agree. I would agree with you there. Not saying he's going to be a first round guy either. We talked about Tyler Linderbaum, kind of a guy who went in the first round last year. I don't think Michael Schmitz is going in the first round, but still, I think he's going to be a solid day 2 player wherever you get him.
100% agree.
You want to go D-line next?
Let's go D-line.
Okay, so what's defensive line?
My defensive lineman standout for the week is Ali Tamiwa Adebawore. Adebawore.
You were close. I was
You nailed it yesterday.
I was
First
yeah.
try.
If I didn't correct myself, no one probably would have.
I would have rolled with it, but
Northwestern DT comes in and just shows a complete skill set, right? 280 pounds, a guy who played more edge this past year than interior, and came here and just said, basically, I'm an interior guy, and I'm capable of holding up in the run game, and I am a force to be reckoned with as a pass rusher when I can get my hands on you, because unique build for the position. We've talked about him a lot, but once again today, had the rep of the day when he took Jared Patterson, the Notre Dame interior offensive lineman, probably about 15 yards back on a bull rush that ended up in a fight that we're going to talk about a little bit later too.
that was the best rep of the day.
Yeah.
Anytime you win a rep in the trenches, so much so that you cause a fight afterwards, that has to go for one of the biggest moments of the week, no question about it. And dude, I thought Jared Patterson's actually looked solid. I feel like throughout.
And he was solid, yeah.
Right, and for him to just get absolutely bull rushed, like you said, 10, 15 yards back, whatever it was, that was a super impressive rep. We've talked about him a ton during the week because he has such that unique build, right? The smaller height, but the longer arm length, it makes him such a unique player and one that I think is definitely going to stand out on draft boards. You agree?
Yeah, and it's like the leverage that you play with when you're 6'1", guys hate blocking that because you can't get under. So you don't really have recourse when he fires off the line low. You kind of just got to hold on for dear life and hope that he can't get off your block. But then, like a lot of 6'1" DTs then have like 32-inch arms, but just 34-inch arms. Like 6'1" with that length is a different animal, and we saw it this week.
Yeah, I was sitting there watching practice and watching some of those reps, and I was actually standing next to former LSU Tiger, former San Diego Charger, Denver Bronco, Jacob Hester, and he was telling me, he's like, I hated having to block those guys that are around like 6 feet, 6'1", because of the natural leverage that they have. Yep. He's like, man, you get me going up against a 6'3", 6'4" edge rusher. He's like, not that I win every rep, but I'm okay with it because I knew I could get underneath those guys. But it's those players that are a little bit lower that can get that natural leverage that even he said, like, it's so hard to help block. It's so hard to just really be able to handle those guys because they can get so low, which I thought was a great note. I got to give a shout out to Keanu Benton. I've talked about him, I feel like, on every single show, but that's why he's got to be a winner for me here. The Wisconsin defensive tackle, we mentioned a little bit of his background, kind of made his name as a run-stuffing nose tackle, a guy who plays zero, shade, all those things on the interior where you're taking up multiple blocks. And so I think his size and his strength is something that really got him playing time early on in Wisconsin. But this past year, he really took to heart being a better pass rusher. He wanted to be more of a complete player. I think he really started to see that as the season went on throughout his tape at Wisconsin, and he put on a show this week. I thought there were a handful of reps where, man, if you were to cut up the top 10 defensive line reps of the week, he might have 3 of them. He might. It was just very impressive how well he was able to move his hands, disengage, get that club rip, get the swim move in there, and it's just a variety of different pass rush moves, and this is the place to put it on display. And so I just thought that he did a great job, and he definitely made some money for himself.
Yeah, he's probably, in terms of interior defensive linemen that were here, I would still bet he's first off the board.
Oh.
Come in.
Yeah?
Not a great class.
No. I agree with you, but I guess I didn't think of it that way, right? Because a lot of people, we have conversations, whether it's on the sideline or after practice, you go like, oh, who's going to be the highest graded guy or highest drafted guy here? But I didn't think about it, but I probably agree with you that Benton's gonna be that first defensive tackle off the board from Mobile.
Yeah.
All right, corners and wide receivers. You said you wanted to hit them next. You want to go wide receiver? You want to go corner? I'll give you the choice.
Let's go wide receiver.
Okay.
I'll go Tank Dell. We talked about him a ton. He just was. He won every single one, so much so that he just didn't show up today. First 2 days,
I don't know if he needed to,
he
man.
He knew what he did. He knew what he put on tape, and he said, I don't need a third day of not losing a rep in one-on-ones to show you that I got the goods. So, yeah, Tank Dell is that dude. He's him.
Feel like he was pretty untouchable all week long, and we love to see these guys, obviously, for all 3 days. But to your point, I mean, what Dell was able to put out there, the social clips that everybody saw, the skill set that he was able to put on display over those first 2 days, the third day probably would have just been more of the same. And so I agree with you. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but you still comfortable with maybe second round for Tank Dell, third round, something like that? What do you think?
I think second round. I think that he will go in that range still, especially in a class that we'll talk about when we do some mock drafts, that after about pick 20, you're like, who am I picking?
All right.
A lot of not strong on depth in this class, we'll say.
All right, so for wide receiver, I got to go our boy Michael Wilson. Right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of different wide receivers who actually really showed up as the week went on. Jaden Reed is somebody who I wanted to shout out, who I think was playing really well as the week went on, the Michigan State wide receiver. But Michael Wilson's that guy, the guy from Stanford. We talked about him a lot in the first show, the recap show, where didn't play a ton at Stanford because of injury. Only played in 14 games over the last 3 seasons, but when he's been on the field, he has been productive, and I thought he was able to put a lot of his skill sets on display. It feels like he just understands how to win at the wide receiver position, whether it was knowledge of the releases, switching up his releases, winning right off the snap, getting into his routes, it being very subtle with either moving slightly to the left, slightly to the right as he's going vertical up the field, getting these corners to flip their hips or boxing them out, and then being able to put his foot in the ground and really change direction. He just understands the mechanics and the success of playing wide receiver. So I had to give him the shout out. I had to give him my wide receiver of the week title.
Yeah, it's hard to pick between him and Dell because they didn't lose. Like the one-on-ones, they were winning every single one. So it's a toss-up. It's one of those two. They both made themselves some money.
Josevich is another guy, the Princeton wide receiver, who I thought had a good week. I mean, he was able to put his speed on display. He even had a really nice contested catch on day 2, so I wanted to make sure that I noted him as well. Rashee Rice, I thought, had a good day 3. I felt like this past day was the best one for him when it came to contested catches, especially they did a lot of work in the red zone, so I feel like he was able to shine there, as that's going to be his bread and butter, is kind of catching through traffic. But yeah, what about defensive backs? Who you got for DBs?
Flip side of the coin, I am going Tyreek Stevenson, the Miami cornerback. We didn't get to see him again today.
I was going to say, you're going guys,
injury.
non-day 3 guys.
Yeah, just going against guys who only played twice. But I think only allowed 1 catch in the one-on-ones. 1 catch like down the football field. May have allowed 1 underneath. But at any time anyone tried to go deep on him or get down the football field, he either was in their hip pocket or he stopped them before even getting there. So the physicality he plays with, the size, and then the recovery speed that he showed on display, I think he has kind of a complete skill set that is going to end up going high in this draft.
Do you think he's a potential first-round guy? Do you think there's a chance?
In this corner class, I don't think so.
It'd be tough.
Exactly. Like in this corner class, because we're going to see 4 or 5 others go already. Not to say that that's always how it goes. Talent obviously still talks, and it's a valuable position.
Sure.
But it's just more that decision comes into play where if you're in the middle of the first round and you're like, hey, do I draft one of these corners? Knowing at pick 45, 50, I can get
you probably get a good one,
another corner also. So yeah, I think the decision's going to go. Let's draft an offensive tackle. Let's draft a more scarce position.
No, I could understand that. I'm gonna go with South Carolina cornerback Darius Rush. This is somebody I was really impressed with yesterday. If you watched the day 2 recap show, you know that I shouted him out there. But it was another day where I felt like he played very well. He was communicating very well with the safeties and the guys who were around him in his secondary, and I just felt like he was able to stick with a lot of these wide receivers this week. I don't know if it was just the fact that there wasn't a ton of speed here at the wide receiver position in Mobile, but whatever it was, I felt like his ability to recover, and I think that is an underrated part of playing corner. Knowing that you're going to get beat sometimes off of the release and not panicking, being able to recover, whether it's having that speed or just having that headspace to know what to do after that, to not panic, to not run into the wide receiver or commit a penalty. He wasn't doing any of that. I felt like he was just very cool. He's calm and collected, and when he knew that ball was coming, when that ball was thrown, he would kind of go to that next gear, try to cut it off, try to get his hands on it, force it in completion. So I was very, very impressed with Darius Rush all week, but it seemed like he got better as the week went on, including what we saw here on day 3.
Yeah, and getting your hands on football. So I think he had multiple picks over the course of the week, just in the one-on-ones, which is something that you either have or you don't. That ability to attack the football, the wherewithal, the awareness that some guys are just lost when the ball is in the air. They can't track both a wide receiver and a football in the air. Rush obviously has that ability that changes games at the next level that everyone wants, because a lot of guys can be there at the catch point. Not a lot of guys can consistently affect the catch point. We saw that with Rush.
All right, what about running back? Let's go to running back. We'll do running back and then we'll do linebacker, so we'll flip those 2 positions. Your first one with running back, who won the week?
Yes, Tajay Spears. Truthfully,
yeah,
this is the one.
This is the one.
You have a different answer, but I think it's because you saw mine.
I did. I saw yours, and I wanted to give somebody else a shout out.
It's a 2-lane running back. He's just too explosive. Now, he had the viral route from the backfield today that took like 5 seconds. That's getting overblown. Don't worry about
the whip route.
The whip
Is that
route.
What you're saying?
The whip route from running back. That happens all the time, right? You always see whips from running backs. that one was absurd, but it more speaks to the movement skills that he possesses.
Yeah.
His ability to bend, the flexibility in and out of his cuts, combined with his explosiveness is like, that's what you want. If you're going to be an undersized running back in the NFL, toting the rock for a full workload, it better look like what Tajay Spears looks like. Prove that to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much on Tajay Spears because I'm going to be talking about him in a few minutes here, a little bit later. But he was fantastic, and there was even a moment in the corner of the end zone when they were doing the red zone drill where he was full extension dive for a catch in the back corner, and he could not come down with it. But it was impressive that he was able to give himself a chance. His athleticism was standing out the whole time. I'll go Kenny McIntosh, the Georgia running back, and I'm really impressed with how he was able to do in the pass catching drills and in the pass protection drills. And I feel like that's really where Kenny McIntosh is going to make a difference. He feels like a guy who has a third down skill set that's just going to stick around in the league for a long, long time, right? Maybe he won't be an early down guy. Maybe he's not going to be a workhorse back, but he feels like a player who can have a long NFL career because of what he is able to do on third down. So that's something that really stood out to me. Spears is the answer for the running back who won the week, but I do feel like Kenny McIntosh really carved himself out a nice role. And when it comes to I want to say day 3. I mean, maybe the third round if somebody really likes him, but probably day 3. He'd be a priority day 3 running back because of the faith that you have in those late downs. So I went with McIntosh.
Yeah, he's that back that you can ask him to do anything. Right? He may not be the guy that you want as a starter, which is why I think he goes on to day 3. Like, he may not bring a ton of high end, but as a receiver, as a runner, he has a complete skill set. You can basically put him in any role and he'll be fine.
Linebackers. Who's your linebacker shout out? Who you got?
Linebacker of the week, as I said before, after O-line, D-line, wide receiver, cornerback, this is more like personal preference. Like, there's not a lot of reps that's like, oh, wow, this guy's definitely linebacker of the week. But I thought Diane Henley, the Washington State linebacker, coverage.
Rocked up.
Yeah, rocked up. Former wide receiver. Nevada started his career there, transferred to Washington State. 6-year player, but only a few years playing the defensive side of the ball. I just thought the movement skills were different than anyone else in this linebacker class in coverage. Just the smoothness with which he can turn his hips and react to whether it's tight ends or running backs in the one-on-ones. I think that's a skill set that you have to be a difference maker at the NFL level nowadays. As an off-ball linebacker, on-ball blitzer type, maybe you can be a little bit limited, but that skill set's something that I think is going to be coveted, and he's the top linebacker here.
I'll go the other direction with linebacker. I'll go the guy that you gave a shout out to. I believe it was yesterday. Yeah. Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati. He's not somebody who I think is going to do a ton in coverage, but he is somebody who, if you just give him a green light and you say, go attack the A or the B gap, he will give you his all. He will charge the A and the B gap and blitz like any linebacker can in this class. And so I feel like, look, let's be honest. When you have the drills where it's pass protection, it's one-on-one, running backs, linebackers are probably going to win that drill more often than not. But he was dominating those drills, so much so that you wanted to see it stand out in that regard. So Pace is somebody who I wanted to give a shout-out to because, like McIntosh, like a guy who was kind of had a streamlined role, right? He was able to showcase that. And I think that NFL teams who watch this week are going to know this is what we get in this guy. And that kind of confidence in that player maybe gets you drafted a little bit higher on day 3 wherever he's going to go,
Yeah, I think it'd be different what he did as a blitzer if it wasn't exactly what we saw on tape at Cincy, right? Like, he was a part of their third down packages as a rusher for Cincinnati. He was lined up on the line of scrimmage, going head-to-head with offensive linemen and beating them. And now I don't think that's something like transitioning to on-ball role. He's not going to be Micah Parsons. We can get that out of the way right now. But I do think he can be a value-add in third down packages as a spy because he is still fast, because he is twitched up at that size, and because he is capable and knows how to basically avoid and take on blocks and get to ball carriers. He's shown it between Miami, between Cincinnati, between here. So you've seen enough from him now that in that role he can succeed at the next level.
Mike just called him Micah Parsons, the next Micah Parsons. That's what I heard.
You did hear that.
That's right. I said his name. I also wanted to shout out to Marvion Overshown, the Texas linebacker. I didn't see enough of him. I've got to go back and watch that All-22 tape that we're going to get. But like from what I saw, super unique build for a linebacker, really long dude, can be very effective in coverage. And so I just wanted to shout him out as well. I thought he had a handful of really nice reps. Last one's quarterback. Anybody stand out from you for the quarterback position?
No,
You got any?
I'm not even going to.
You're not giving love to anybody?
I'm not going to front and act like any of these quarterbacks came here and showed anything
You're a
that makes me
hater.
intrigued at all from them from an NFL perspective. And I was excited to see Jake Haener. Like, I was excited to see the Fresno State 'cause he's a gamer. I thought he was a guy who rises to the occasion or rose to the occasion a lot on his tape at Fresno State. Did not think he rose to the occasion here. I don't think any of them did.
You are
to the
way
degree
too
where
harsh right now.
I'm even intrigued by it.
You're way too harsh right now.
Might
Look,
be, but-
my top quarterback in this week, I got to give it to Max Duggan because when the scrimmage period was on, when it was 11 on 11, when it was ball, if you will say, I think he looked good. Especially, I mean, the red zone drill as well. He was delivering the ball where he needed to. I felt like he wasn't totally panicking under pressure. Ball was going where it needed to. I think that Max Duggan was the top quarterback this week, but I also will shout out Jake Haener because I thought Haener got better as the week went on. You know, early on in Senior Bowls, first practice, this is really how it's like with any quarterback. A lot of check downs, a lot of short stuff. You're learning the playbook, you're learning wide receivers, and as the week goes on, you kind of open up a little bit, right? And you let loose. I felt like Haener had another confident practice and his most confident practice on day 3. So, are you drafting this guy to be a franchise quarterback? No, probably not. But I do love the fact that he got better every single practice, and I think that NFL teams noticed that as well. So those two guys, I think made some money for themselves, even if they're going to be day 3 quarterbacks.
You can draft them. Go ahead. All you.
You know what? If
They're
any
all for you.
Look,
I'm leaving it for you.
Look, if any NFL team out there wants to give me a job, I'll draft these guys.
You
on
got
day
Jake
3.
Haener in the 5th round.
Damn it, we're going to win. Okay, so let's go to some other superlatives. Biggest riser on the week. Who you got?
So riser,
any position,
yeah.
any team.
Riser to me is a very subjective, like it's a very individual term to use because it can only rise on your board, right? Like if you were already if you already had, let's say, Michael Wilson, the Stanford wide receiver, as the top 20 player in this class, well, you didn't rise. You knew, like that. Then you just got your priors confirmed. So for me, the biggest riser was DeJuan Jones, the Ohio State tackle, because heading into this, I was not high on him. He was in the 70s on the PFF draft board. I thought he's a nice guy towards the back end of day 2 that you just kind of take a shot on and see if he can, maybe evolve into the position. But I think already he is a much more NFL-ready player than I was giving him credit for. I think he knows how to work around his athletic limitations better than I gave him credit for. And I think there's a role or a position for him at the NFL level that he can be not even just starting caliber tackle, he can be a dominant tackle in certain schemes to where if someone wants to take him, I'm not putting him probably in the top 30 on the draft board. He was a top 50 player for sure. And if someone wants to take him at the back end of the first round, I don't think that's the craziest draft pick I've ever seen.
Okay, I mean that would constitute a big riser, right?
Yes,
I
so
mean,
that's
there
a
are
big
a lot
riser
of
for
people
me.
who were thinking of him as like a mid-round, maybe like 4th round pick, just maybe a big dude that you take a chance on. So for you to even say that he would be a potential top 50 selection, that's a massive rise. Look, I know some people were really big on this player coming into the week. I wasn't as bullish on him, but Will McDonald from Iowa State, I liked Will McDonald, but I thought, I looked at him as you said, all right, speed guy, lighter guy. I'm not sure he's going to win as much with speed when we get to the NFL level. After seeing him this week go up against all different types of offensive linemen, including an offensive lineman that I really like in Darnell Wright, and continuing to get the better of him, that's a big riser on my board. That means that what you bring to the table, I did not evaluate well enough. I think that he brings a speed element that is not just attacking to the outside shoulder. He also brought speed with plenty of great counters to the inside. Not just pass rush moves, but timing as well. The timing of when to go inside, when he knew that offensive tackles were way too open, letting that inside lane open up. So I just feel as though he is somebody who I think made a lot of money for himself because of how well he has been positioned here.
Yeah, and 241 pounds. I just want to say, 240 pounds is not all built the same. Not every guy who is at that size you'd consider undersized, but some guys have the explosiveness and power behind them to not have to gain a single pound. And I think I'd put McDonald in that camp.
He was good enough.
He is for sure a
and
guy
that goes into it.
Is not going to be, maybe he's never going to be a plus elite run defender, but he's not going to be a liability. This is a 3-down player at the next level. So the size concerns, I am not one of those who is banging the table that will be an issue for him.
What about somebody who was a little bit disappointing on the week? Somebody who you're really excited about going into things, who maybe just didn't live up to the hype, maybe needs a big bounce-back performance at the Combine or whatever to kind of help their momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's got to be, for me, Andre Carter, the Army edge defender. Now, I'm not giving up on him by any means, but I had hoped he would come here and really sort of, even just this whole past year, I was kind of disappointed in his tape because I had hoped he would add considerable strength to his frame, add some power elements to his game, and show that he was the worst run-defending defensive lineman here by a good margin. You just did not want him going one-on-one trying to set an edge. He got moved too easily.
Right.
And there was no – he either had to knock an offensive lineman's hands away entirely or he was not going to win the rep. He could not get guys into his pads and then get those hands off him. So he's a guy who reminds me a lot of kind of Max Crosby coming out, where the athleticism, the uncoachable quickness, bend, whatever you want, it is there. But if he does not put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle mass and quickly, you just can't see the football field. So hopefully that's the case. I remember when Max Crosby got drafted, Mike Mayock told him, hey, we're going to get you in the weight room. That's what it's got to be for Andre Carter. I still like him as probably a middle of the day two sort of guy. But I thought if he would have come here and really put his foot on the gas, he could have been a first rounder. Don't see that happening or even come close.
Now, this is a player for mine that I still really like. I want to make that very clear. But I was hoping to see a better week out of Illinois running back Chase Brown, just because I like him a lot. He's really high on my running back rankings. And to be fair, Chase's style of where he's going to win in the NFL isn't really – it's not really going to be conducive to an event like this, right? It's not, because you can't have a lot of contact against these linebackers. There's no, getting through the play and breaking tackles, forcing missed tackles, all that. But what disappointed me with Chase is the drops. The fumbles, the dropped passes, the lack of ball security in the game that we've got upcoming this Saturday. No fumbles, no drop passes. That's what I want to see from Chase Brown. I would like to see him bounce back in that way and be a little bit more focused when the football is coming to him, because this is just a damn good football player. And I think that he could be – this is just a damn good football player. And I think that he could be fantastic in the NFL. But you got to secure the football. You got to secure the football to get on the field to show your stuff. So still really like Chase Brown. Also really like this brother. I thought that Sidney Brown had a great week as well. Like him, but I was hoping we wouldn't have these fumbling problems.
They did have two opposite weeks. Sidney Brown had one of the best.
Sidney Brown had awesome weeks.
In terms of the safeties comparatively, we obviously lumped all the defensive backs together, but if it was just safety, Sidney Brown would have gotten my top for that award. But on the other side, running back, drops, fumbles, quick way to never see the field.
Yeah, and we don't want that, because Chase is a damn good running back, and I want him on the field. Surprise. Who's the biggest surprise this week?
Biggest surprise for me was Michael Wilson, the Stanford wide receiver. I just did not expect that caliber of dominance. That's why I was hoping we'd see from a guy like Rashee Rice, the SMU wide receiver, who's super productive. But Wilson, a wholly unproductive wide receiver at Stanford. We've talked about how he didn't play much, but even in those games, even 14 games, he still had just over the last 3 seasons still had under 900 yards in those 14 games. So it was not like a feature focal point of the Stanford offense. But obviously injuries played a massive factor into that, and I think you're seeing him fully healthy now. And when you guys fully healthy, what he's doing here, you cannot fake. And that's why the real deal standouts here are valuable, because those are guys that he's facing here that will be in the NFL next season, that he could be going up against. And if you're dominating him here, probably still going to dominate him next year.
Well, he was my guy too. So you said all the. I didn't even know that we had the same guy here. I'll shout out Jamie Robinson though, the Florida State safety, who I thought was fantastic all week. I didn't know a ton about him coming into the week, and he was really able to stand out amongst a good defensive back group. I was sitting on the end zone watching the red zone drill, and just the way that he communicated, the competitiveness that this guy always has. Didn't matter what his rep was, who he was going up against. He was kind of talking with those guys a little bit, and he was talking with them after the rep too. Whether they got a really good catch, whether he made a really good play on him, he was making sure to be vocal. It's those kinds of confident, outgoing defensive backs that I always gravitate towards. He's a physical guy. He likes getting in your face. I feel like that competitiveness it was flowing through him at all times, all week. So Jamie Robinson from Florida State, that's somebody that I'll shout out to as a good surprise. Biggest moment of the week. What do we got? What's your superlative for the biggest moment?
It was today. Me and Dave Solfaro, who captured the moment on Twitter, and you've probably seen it by now because it did go viral. But when Aitamiwa Adebare, God damn it.
You're close. You're close.
Just one syllable.
You're close.
When he, obviously, bull rushed Jared Patterson, put him about 3 feet from us.
Tough.
And thought we were going to get involved in a fight.
Thought you were getting a rep.
I was going to get my ass out of there if a fight did break out, because those are big dudes, and I am objectively not a big dude. That was a cool moment.
Yeah.
I mean, just being that close to it. fun time.
I love the Tajay Spears touchdown moment. I said that I was going to talk about Tajay Spears a little bit, and he has been one of the biggest risers I think that we have had, or the biggest winner, I should just say, one of them from this event. It's really tough to stand out as a running back, and yet he was still able to. His movement skills, his one-cut ability, his ability to force missed tackles, like that just was able to show up because he was that good at it. So whole week was fantastic, but there was a moment where it was on day 2. Nice little counter play. Follows the blocks exactly the way that he needs to. Shout out to the offensive line for blocking it up the way that he needed to. He gets to the second level, and he puts a move on the linebacker, so much so that the linebacker was just whiffing it air. I don't even know who it was. I didn't mean for somebody to catch a stray here as I'm talking about Tajay Spears, but like it was unbelievable. And it was such a great run. It was such a good play by him that the whole offense just started screaming and sprinting to the end zone to go celebrate with him. And those are the best moments of the Senior Bowl. So I really love that one from him, even outside of the whip route that he also won on day 3, which you're not going to give him credit for.
Moment, though.
Okay, so another one that we have here. This is the last superlative that we have. Favorite team player fit. So the whole week when we've been doing these shows, we've been having 5 different player team fits. I want to know what your favorite was from the entire week. It doesn't have to be one that we already did on this show. It can be, but what's the one that when you think about these guys here, putting on a helmet for a certain team and a certain scheme, what gets you jazzed up? What do you like?
It's the one I highlighted yesterday, and it is Osiris Torrance to the Lions. Obviously, I would pick 18 more likely than not.
What an O-line.
I want an O-line that walks into every game next year and has the undoubted advantage. What that does from a schematic perspective for a play caller and one as good as Ben Johnson is invaluable. You cannot measure that because he just knows I can dial up whatever. Anything you want to draw on a chalkboard can be implemented in the game because you can get 5 out. You don't have to worry about that whatsoever. So I think that would be a pick that some might call a luxury pick. I would call smart team building if it were to happen.
We'll be one hell of an O-line.
Yeah.
So I can't hate on it at all whatsoever. Yesterday, I think we had Tank Dell going to the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna switch it up. I'm sorry. Sav is out here clapping right next to me. He's a Cleveland Brown fan. I'm gonna switch it up though. What about Tank Dell to the Colts? All right, you let Paris Campbell walk. You've got Alec Pierce, who's the vertical guy. You got the big possession wide receiver in Michael Pittman Jr., but you still need that speed element.
Yeah.
I think that could be Tank Dell.
I mean, he's what they wanted out of Paris Campbell, right? Paris Campbell tested like that guy, is objectively not that guy.
Well, he just wasn't reliable.
Field. And
so he might be moving on from him anyway.
That's a lot of weapons for Will Levis. That's a lot of weapons.
Well, Will Levis sliding into there. But yeah, I like Tank Dell to the Colts. So I think that kind of rounds out their wide receiver room. It gives them, like you mentioned, that's what they have wanted out of Paris Campbell. And it just feels like Paris Campbell might be on his way out. So if he is, you still have to get some juice in there. You've got to get some juice on that room. So
Dell is a much, much better version of what they wanted Paris Campbell to be. Paris Campbell's just not that sudden route runner. I mean, he's a hell of a straight line, linear athlete, but he is just not the level of dynamism Tank Dell brings.
I know we don't have this in the rundown, but before we get out of here, you have a dog of the week?
Oh, yeah.
Like a dog of the week?
I do.
Quinn's got a dog of the week?
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature.
Sun,
dog
wind, rain, cold. You can see it on the screen. You can hear it in the mics. Mother Nature was absolutely putting on a show.
Ambiance behind us. No, okay.
The dog of the week, my money.
Yes.
Nesta Jade Silvera. Have not talked about him at all. Arizona State defensive tackle.
Okay.
No one chirped more.
Love it.
Throughout the week of practice than him. He was calling out offensive linemen. Now, sometimes irresponsibly. He was not winning every rep. By no means was he like a top performer of the week. Like, had a solid week, but was not dominant by any means. But he was calling out guys by name, saying they were avoiding him, saying they didn't want to block him. And that's the kind of energy you need in the one-on-ones. That's a guy that will, maybe he's not going to be a starter for you, but he will set a good tone for your football team.
I might go with Darnell Wright. Just because I love so much of his practice reps from day 1 to day 2. I mentioned that Will McDonald got the better of him with speed a little bit, but Wright's more of a power guy. And if we're talking like dog of the week, like a mentality, he erased some guys that were trying to go into his chest, especially with the way that guys were trying to bull rush him, and he was just having absolutely none of it, getting his hands on guys early. I loved it, man. I love what I saw. So I'm going to go Darnell.
There was one point during the team drills that the offensive line across was Matthew Bergeron at left tackle. He goes like 322. Then Steve Avila at left guard. He goes about 330. John Michael Schmitz at center. Goes about 320 plus. Right guard was Osiris Torrance, goes 337. And then right tackle is Darnell Wright, goes 342. That was just a offensive line that was basically like shoulder to shoulder in their stances because they're all so wide. That's how I would want to build an offensive line.
That's
if
it.
I was an NFL GM.
That's a steak and shake 5x5 right there. That's just 5 patties stacked on each other. Can't handle it.
It was. I just wanted them to run. I was like, just fucking run power. Come on. But they didn't. They passed.
I think no. Oh, they didn't.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was passing drill. It was like 2 minutes. But.
Cowards hate that. Maybe they were saving it for the game. Maybe we're just going to see an absolute bulldozer, like the flying V from Mighty Ducks, except it's the O-line, and they're just walking down the field.
QB sneak like 5 times in a row. Get down the field.
Could. Hey, Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl because of that exact strategy. Appreciate everybody watching all of our coverage of the Senior Bowl all week long. This has been a lot of fun for us to do, even through some wild weather conditions. Of course, let us know what you guys thought of the Senior Bowl. We know that you've seen the clips, you've listened to the shows. Tell us what players you want to see on your favorite team. We love hearing about those player team fits, so let us know in the comments. Appreciate everybody watching. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Mike Renner. We will be back with you one more time this week for a very special post-Senior Bowl mock draft. But until then, thanks guys for watching It's Just Football. We'll see you next time.
It's not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. He's just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
Not just get it and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.